welcome to Tales of Honor Podcast, a podcast dedicated to telling the true stories of every recipient of the Medal of Honor. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tales of Honor Podcast. I'm your host, Christoph Ambrosch, and today's episode is episode number 205. And if this is your first time hearing this podcast, welcome, and please be sure to subscribe everywhere you are listening to be sure that you get new episodes every time they come out, every Wednesday and Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. A couple things I need to address here before moving on to the Tale of Honor for today, which is going to take place during the Vietnam War. I only have one other episode for this month, which will conclude the 2-month section of the Vietnam War. Obviously, many more recipients from the Vietnam War, which we'll come back to at another time. I like to usually put up for vote on Instagram and Facebook which conflicts you'd like to hear next, but this time I'm actually going to do a 1-month redirect for a little bit here. There have been several other recipients that have received recently within the last year. I think I haven't gone back further than a year at this point. So I'm going to quickly do those for a month. I think there are 7 recipients that will be through all of June, and then I will pick back up. Probably toward the end of June, I will do another vote then to see which ones you'd like to hear. I would actually kind of like to go back to the Korean War again, and the Civil War as well. So it might be between those two to see which ones you would like to hear first. If you would like to send me a message and there's something you want to hear first, let me know. I'll be more than happy to look into doing that. But I guess that's it for now. So let's move on now to episode 205, going back to the Vietnam War. And now, a tale of honor. John was born on the 21st of January, 1940, in Boston, Massachusetts, but grew up near Louisville, Kentucky. After only a year and a half of high school, he enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps Reserve on the 19th of February, 1957, which he then enlisted in active duty 1 year later. Like many other Marines, John went to the Marine Corps Recruit Depot in Parris Island in South Carolina for recruit training, and he then transferred to Camp Lejeune in North Carolina for advanced infantry combat training. Now at Private First Class, John was transferred to the 7th Infantry Company, USMCR, in Louisville, Kentucky, until March of 1958. He attended and completed the Non-Commissioned Officers Leadership School at Camp Pendleton in California in May of 1958 and was then transferred to Kodiak, Alaska, where he was promoted to corporal. John later became a drill instructor at Parris Island in 1962, and before being ordered to the West Coast in preparation of deployment, he was the assistant brig warden at the Marine Barracks at the U.S. Naval Base in Norfolk, Virginia. John left the West Coast and joined the 4th Marines, 3rd Marine Division in April of 1966 in the Republic of Vietnam. He held many positions during this deployment, including Platoon Sergeant of Company K, 3rd Battalion, the S-2 Officer and Operation Chief of H&S Company, 3rd Battalion, and Operations Chief of Headquarters Company, 4th Marines. It was his actions as the acting platoon leader during Operation Hastings, however, that would earn him the Medal of Honor. The citation reads, "For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty as acting platoon leader, 1st Platoon, Company K, 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines, 3rd Marine Division in the Republic of Vietnam on 18 July 1966. 2nd Lieutenant, then Staff Sergeant, McGinty's platoon, which was providing rear security to protect the withdrawal of the battalion from a position which had been under attack for 3 days, came under heavy small arms, automatic weapons, and mortar fire from an estimated enemy regiment. With each successive human wave which assaulted his 32-man platoon during the 4-hour battle, 2nd Lieutenant McGinty rallied his men to beat off the enemy. In one bitter assault, 2 of these squads became separated from the remainder of the platoon. With complete disregard for his safety, 2nd Lieutenant McGinty charged through intense automatic weapons and mortar fire to their position. Finding 20 men wounded and the medical corpsmen killed, he quickly reloaded ammunition magazines and weapons for the wounded men and directed their fire upon the enemy. Although he was painfully wounded as he moved to care for the disabled men, he continued to shout encouragement to his troops and to direct their fire so effectively that the attacking hordes were beaten off. When the enemy tried to outflank his position, he killed 5 of them at point-blank range with his pistol. When they again seemed on the verge of overrunning the small force, he skillfully adjusted artillery and airstrikes within 50 yards of his position. This destructive firepower routed the enemy, who left an estimated 500 bodies on the battlefield. Second Lieutenant McGinty's personal heroism, indomitable leadership, selfless devotion to duty, and bold fighting spirit inspired his men to resist the repeated attacks by a fanatical enemy, reflected great credit upon himself, and upheld the high traditions of the Marine Corps and the United States Naval Service. John returned to the States in May of 1967 and went back to Parris Island and served as a drill instructor at the recruit depot until he received a promotion and commission as second lieutenant on the 8th of August, 1967. He immediately began his new assignment as a series officer with the 1st Recruit Battalion on the 9th of August. 7 months later, on the 12th of March, 1968, John received his Medal of Honor from President Johnson in a ceremony at the White House, along with Robert Modrzejewski. John continued to serve in the Marine Corps for another 8 years and retired after 19 years in October of 1976. Shortly after coming home, John had developed a deep, conservative Christian faith, saying that he had not prayed in Vietnam because he had not yet found his faith. "But I thought, if there is a God, please let him watch out for my children," he said. "I thought I was going to die for sure." Because of this, John distanced himself from wearing the Medal of Honor, although many would report and write that he actually gave away his medal. He distanced himself from it because of its depiction of the Roman goddess Minerva that is on the medal. John told the Associated Press in 1984, "The medal is a form of idolatry because it has a false god on it." He continued to take pride in the medal's significance, however. "If it were me alone, I probably wouldn't give a damn. But I wear this thing for that platoon." John worked for the Department of Veteran Affairs in a few different positions and had several surgeries to try to correct injuries to his left eye, but eventually it had to be removed and he wore a patch from then on. There was a display where John's M1911 pistol was featured, and in 1978 the pistol was stolen. The pistol was purchased at an auction in 2011 by George Berry, who then contacted John in order to return it. Out of gratitude, John sent George the M1911 pistol that formerly belonged to another Medal of Honor recipient, John Finn, as well as a Medal of Honor challenge coin. John James McGinty III died from bone cancer at his home in Beaufort, South Carolina, on the 17th of January, 2014, at the age of 73. He is buried in the Beaufort National Cemetery, Section D, Site 703. And that was a Tale of Honor. Thank you for listening to Tales of Honor Podcast. Head on over to talesofhonorpodcast.com for more information, other ways to listen and support the podcast, and please be sure to leave a good rating and a nice review. If you have any questions or comments, send them on over to talesofhonorpodcast@gmail.com. And until next time, I'm Christoph Ambrose. Thanks for listening.